Somewhere in the southern Caribbean, just off the coast of Venezuela, lies an island most people have never heard of. It's barely 60 kilometers long. Fewer than 160,000 people live here. And in 2026, this tiny speck of land did something no country its size had ever done. It reached the World Cup. This is Curacao, seen from above. Welcome to Aerial Atlas. Curacao is the largest of the so-called ABC Islands, Aruba, Bonaire, and Curaçao, in the Dutch Caribbean. The whole country covers just 444 square kilometers. But forget lush tropical jungle, Curacao is dry. Really dry. It sits outside the Caribbean's hurricane belt, swept by constant trade winds, and most of the island is covered in cactus, aloe, and scrubland, more desert than rainforest. Its highest point, Mount Christoffel, rises to just 372 meters. And along parts of the coast, shallow salt ponds glow pink with flamingos. It's a strange, beautiful, sun-baked little world, unlike anywhere else in the region. Long before any European arrived, Curacao was home to the Arawak people, who paddled here from the South American mainland over 1,000 years ago. Then, in 1499, Spanish explorers landed and were distinctly unimpressed. Finding no gold and little fresh water, they dismissed it as an isla inútil, a useless island. The Spanish never really settled. But in 1634, the Dutch West India Company saw what they had missed, one of the finest natural harbors in the entire Caribbean. They seized the island and everything changed. That deep, sheltered harbor turned Curacao into one of the darkest hubs of the Atlantic world. Through the 17th and 18th centuries, the Dutch made the island a central depot of the transatlantic slave trade. Tens of thousands of enslaved Africans were shipped here, held, and sold on to plantations across the Americas. The island's wealth, its grand merchant houses, its warehouses, was built on this trade and on salt, harvested from its coastal pans. It's a painful history, and one Curacao does not hide. Today it's documented in museums built on the very ground where enslaved people were once auctioned. The Dutch abolished slavery here in 1863, decades after many of their neighbors. Freed islanders stayed, and their descendants make up much of Curaçao's population today. For most of the 20th century, the island was the capital of a colony called the Netherlands Antilles. But in 2010, that colony was dissolved, and Curaçao became something unusual, a constituent country within the Kingdom of the Netherlands. It runs its own affairs, its own parliament, its own football team, while sharing a monarch and a passport with the Dutch. Not quite independent, not quite a colony, something in between. The capital, Willemstad, is the island's jewel. Along the waterfront stand rows of tall, gabled Dutch townhouses, except here they're painted in candy colors: pink, ochre, teal, cobalt blue. The story goes that a 19th century governor banned white walls, claiming the tropical glare gave him migraines, so the whole town turned to color. Splitting the harbor is the Queen Emma Bridge, a floating pontoon bridge that swings open on the water to let ships through. The old town, divided into the districts of Punda and Atrabanda, is so well preserved that UNESCO named it a World Heritage Site. For an island of fewer than 160,000 people, Curacao is astonishingly diverse, a genuine melting pot of African, Dutch, Latin American, and Sephardic Jewish roots. In fact, Willemstad is home to the Mikveh Israel Emmanuel Synagogue, founded in 1651, the oldest surviving synagogue in the Americas. And most islanders speak as their mother tongue, not Dutch but Papiamentu, a rich Creole that blends Portuguese, Spanish, African languages, Dutch, and English into something entirely their own. Many locals switch effortlessly between 4 languages in a single conversation. It's this blend of faiths, of tongues, of histories that gives Curacao an identity you won't find anywhere else. And that culture comes alive in sound. Curaçao's heartbeat is tumba, a fast, brass-driven music that takes over the island every year in the run-up to Carnival. For weeks, the streets of Willemstad fill with feathers, sequins, steel, and song, as enormous parades wind through the capital. There's also tambu, an older drum and chant tradition with deep African roots, once banned by colonial authorities, now embraced as a symbol of the island's resilience. Curaçao's food is as layered as its people. The national dish is quechilina, a whole round of Dutch edam or Gouda cheese, hollowed out, stuffed with spiced meat, olives, and raisins, and baked until it's molten, a delicious leftover from the colonial table. Alongside it you'll find funchai, a cornmeal staple, fresh-caught fish, and hearty stews called stoba. And then there's the island's most famous export of all, Blue Curaçao, that electric blue liqueur poured in bars around the world, made, originally right here, from the dried peel of a bitter local orange called the laranja. So how does a small, dry island make a living? 3 ways mostly. For nearly a century, Curaçao's economy was dominated by oil. The giant Isla refinery in Willemstad processed Venezuelan crude and employed thousands. Second, offshore finance. The island became a well-known center for international banking and company registration. And third, increasingly, tourism, cruise ships, divers, and sunseekers drawn by the colorful capital and the famously clear water. Add the worldwide sales of Blue Curaçao, and you have an economy that punches well above the weight of its 160,000 people. For visitors, though, the real magic is underwater. Curaçao is ringed by coral reef that begins just a few meters from the shore, which means you can wade off the beach and be snorkeling over a reef wall within minutes. The island boasts more than 70 dive sites and over 35 beaches, many tucked into limestone coves with impossibly turquoise water. Inland, Christoffel National Park protects the island's rugged interior and rare wildlife, while on the wild north coast, the waves of sheet boca thunder through caves and blowholes. And because there are no hurricanes, it's warm, dry, and diveable all year round. Which brings us to 2026. For a country of 160,000, fielding a competitive national football team should be almost impossible. But Curaçao had 2 secret weapons. First, that Dutch connection. Many players in the squad were born or raised in the Netherlands, with Curaçaoan heritage, choosing to represent the island of their roots. And second, experience on the bench. The team was led by Dick Advocaat, a 78-year-old Dutch coaching legend, who became the oldest manager ever to take charge at a World Cup. Through the CONCACAF qualifiers, this tiny island held its nerve and booked its place at the 2026 World Cup, its first ever. In doing so, Curaçao became the least populous nation in history to qualify, shattering the old record held by Iceland, a country with more than twice its people. An island once dismissed as useless, shaped by the slave trade by Dutch merchants by a dozen cultures folded into one, bone-dry, sun-bleached, and impossibly colorful, and now, against every expectation, standing on football's biggest stage. That was Curaçao seen from above. If you enjoyed the journey, subscribe. Here on Aerial Atlas, we fly over a new country every day.